definitely a couple of learnings on this project, and we are taking all these certainly into our current projects. For us, it's all about de-risking a project. Back in the days when we started with just a small refurbishment, changing the kitchen and changing the carpet.
Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel, and on this channel we share our property investing tips and also document all our projects. So today's video is all about our learnings from our recently completed project King Street. If you haven't checked out the older videos regarding this project, I'll link it up here in a playlist. Make sure you go catch up on them. We have already shared what has gone well and what didn't go well in this project.
Yeah, so the first learning that we got, and that comes straight from what did not go so well, we've mentioned that we've had an awful lot of changes due to HMO licensing requirements, planning and so on, structural issues. So how we usually do it is we send one set of plans to our builders and they go quote on it and then they build it. But what if there are changes? We don't really have like a folder management system where we put exactly to share with our builder, where we invite them and then they can see, okay, these are the updated plans. It's more like a WhatsApp, and then we say, okay, these are the changes, but they just get lost, those changes. So we would implement this sharing documents with our builder.
So we have a folder structure ourselves in Dropbox that we often keep everything in place, but we haven't shared this folder with our builder because, you know, they're not very like tech savvy and all this stuff, so we always have communicated through WhatsApp and sending documents through WhatsApp, any amendments on WhatsApp. So we thought, you know, that's the best way to do it with them, but all the plans just get mixed up and lost in the WhatsApp chat group. So yeah, moving forward, I think it's better to share our folder with our builders.
Yeah, that leads us to the next learning, which is when you're more hands-on those projects, which we clearly were, even though we didn't set out to be that hands-on. You need to check the drawings. What have you gotten from your architect? Then check what the joiner has built based on those drawings, and have they followed also the changes, which leads back to the folder structure, because you cannot solely rely on like one set of plans that have been produced. Or entirely on what has been built. You need to see, does it match with the licensing requirements?
Because at the end of the day, you know, we as the landlord, as the investor, our names go onto the license. We are the license holder, and any issues, any fines or penalties, everything lands on you as the landlord. You know, joiner doesn't get the blame, the architect doesn't get the blame, so you have to be really on top of things. And also you really need to familiarize yourself with the regs, with the licensing requirements. Of course, you would expect architects to know that for every council, but what they put onto paper might not be necessarily built out accurately by the joiner. So unless you have hired the architect on as project manager or as contract administrator, unless you have done that, then you should really be on top of things.
Yeah, make sure that you actually read what are the HMO licensing requirements, and maybe you even want to have a look at the building control standards, so that you know why are these things built that way, and if you change it, what are the parameters where you can change it. That was a learning for us, that you need to know it in detail when it comes to making changes.
Yeah, and because we were in direct communication with the council, the HMO officer told us about these new requirements coming in. So naturally, we didn't expect our architect to know that because it wasn't published anywhere. We only got the communication from the HMO officer, so we have to tell our architect that these are the new rules coming in. Please adapt this into your plans now for this project.
It's also updating the builders, so even though they know how to build HMOs according to the specifications, but if they have changed, they wouldn't automatically realize that. So that is on us to also update our builders. Like, look, we know you have built the bathroom this size before, but now it needs to be bigger, even though you don't know yet. You cannot Google it either. It's not on the council websites, but we know because we have gotten information. Yeah, the next point is about valuations, and that is an internal valuation every time the builder is doing works. So when you do a project, and let's say it's just a small refurbishment of 10 grand, then okay, the maximum damage can be 10 grand. Like, you've paid everything to the builder, they haven't done anything, which is also not that great. But the damage is limited to how much you could spend on the project. But now we have spent more than 150,000 in just to the builder alone, and you want to make sure you know what you have spent for. So in our business we have internal valuations where we match what has been done on the project and how much value does they correspond to according to how much did the builder quote us. And we just noticed that it's really important when the amount just go higher and higher and higher, because we don't want to be in a situation where we send 10 grand here and 20 grand there and another 20 grand, but the builder hasn't done any works.
So implementing this internal valuation process, no one told us to do that, and no one has taught us how to do it. It came from experience. We had to fire a builder in one of our earlier projects. If you haven't watched that video, I'll link it up here. So it's a lesson that we took away from that sort of bad experience with the builder, and we said to ourselves, okay, we have to implement this internal valuation process for ourselves, so that we know exactly when works are done and how much we have paid up to.
Yeah, so now it just cannot happen that we would release a payment that is not justified by the actual work done.
Yeah.
Would never happen. And then the next point is about making changes without increasing costs. So as we have chewed on a long time now, is there are a lot of changes that went into this project.
Yeah.
But then how do you make all those changes without increasing the bill more and more and more and making the project unprofitable?
Yeah. It's always easy to spend more money. It's always easy. But how you control the cost and stay within budget, I think that is always the biggest challenge.
Yeah, that's where a lot of value engineering on our side had to come in, where you just need to achieve a certain requirement. For example, you need to get the stairway up to where the stairway has to go and comply with building regs. But do you chisel away the floor joists and put in a new steel beam, or do you just make this room a bit smaller and you go around? Which one is easier and more cost effective? We went for the more cost effective solutions often.
In a way, it's also a lot on like problem solving, right? Because a lot of these requirements come from the council or come from building control officer. So it's always working with these people and seeing how can we work around things to keep costs at the minimal and also then come up with a solution.
Yeah, and that coming up with solutions ultimately is a learning for us where our design is standing out, and we have that learning now where we rather focus more on the design, making it more desirable for tenants, so that it leads to higher rents because it's more desirable. That product does not exist on the market, or at least in this area of the market, and that leads to higher sales prices then, and ultimately to higher returns for the project.
Yeah, and I think in terms of design, there is also, you need to strike a balance there. You cannot go like too over specs where the market doesn't demand it. So we have seen really nice, nicely designed rooms in our area, but these rooms weren't renting that well either, because they are demanding for too high of a rent that people cannot afford anymore in the area. So yeah.
And in the end, it's our business to beat the banks, as you know. We're beating banks and inflation, and we need to make sure that our projects give those returns. And we just chose to do that with better design, better rents, higher sales price, better returns.
Yeah.
So this was now our first commercial conversion, and we now definitely have a better understanding of the process, of the timelines, of like the unforeseen challenges that could come, of structural things, and there can be an increase in timeline and also in costs. So we have definitely learned the value of value engineering, as I've mentioned a couple of times now, and also how to guide the process from updating drawings and communicating it with builders, and that all this might be necessary because we've now experienced it. So we can certainly take those learnings and apply it to our next projects, we definitely do bigger projects now. We already do bigger projects, by the way. And this was our starting point to get into those commercial conversions.
Yeah, so definitely a learning there is also don't be afraid of doing bigger deals. We came across this property on the market probably more than a year before we put an offer on it. At that point of time, we weren't sort of mentally probably ready for taking on such a big project, which requires planning and a lot of structural works. But within that year of doing other projects, and we saw this property was still on the market at a reduced price, that was when we were sort of ready. We were still nervous in the beginning, but we said to ourselves, okay, we have seen this other scheme being done down the road. That gives us confidence, so we decided to do it. Of course, our project came with a different set of problems, but we managed to solve them and overcome all the challenges. So yeah, that built you up as a person as well.
Yeah, so there were definitely a couple of learnings on this project, and we are taking all these certainly into our current projects. It's for us, it's all about de-risking a project. Back in the days when we started with just a small refurbishment, changing the kitchen and changing the carpet, then we went into HMO, so we reconfigure layouts, and now we do change of use and completely rejig the whole house. It goes from challenges to challenges, but we're certainly ticking off one after another. And
as the saying goes, you don't know what you don't know. So on this project, definitely there were so many things that we didn't know of, but now we know. So of course, when we step up into bigger projects, there will be stuff that we don't know, but we will overcome them eventually, as how we have overcome them on this project. So
yeah, and that pretty much wraps up our learnings for this project. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Bye.